Hi, welcome to Culture of Paint. In this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For our main topic, we're going to discuss the painting meta, both for gaming armies and for competition. And then we'll close out the show, as usual, taking a look at what the hashtag Paint Cultists have been up to. Our Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience, and we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now let's talk about paint. Right, and I think we are back in. Chat's there, videos are there. Lovely job. Sorry, a tiny bit late, everybody. I'm Henry. Joining me tonight, as usual, are Andy and Matt, guest hosts. Is it still there on your lap? Not Rich. Yeah.
She'll bugger off.
There it is. That's a surefire way to get a couple of extra likes, mate.
There you go.
Get a pet in there. Rich, I can't be joining us tonight, sadly. He's still without internet somewhere. I don't know. Deepest, darkest West Country.
He's moved to the woods where he belongs.
Yeah. So, and apologies that we're a little bit late with this show. We missed the last one. A combination of house moves and lots of Nurgle. It's just been a bit of a rough start to the year, but we are good to go. We will be sticking to the usual fortnightly thing going forwards with any luck. But it does mean there's been lots to look at over the last couple of weeks, and it doesn't appear that 2023 is going to be a chill year
Nope.
for cool things. So let's have a look at the slides and see what we got.
So first up is
right. So now obviously this would have been slightly more pertinent when we were going to do a show last week. But yeah, Games Workshop have announced that they are revamping their Lizard Man range, or Seraphon as they are in their Age of Sigmar game. If you've listened to a lot of our past shows, you'll know we're sort of huge fans of when they do the big revamps, and especially when it leaves you with an army where all your kits are generally of the same quality, even if not the same era. They all look right together, and particularly when it means that your core troops look fantastic. And the core troops, the Saurus, are one of the things we saw for these guys, and it's just going to be amazing. It's dinosaurs as well, so this is the perfect, like, oh, you like dinosaurs, do you? Let me show you this Warhammer game that I like playing or painting. It's a good way to get people in. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I am in love. This one's amazing. The Slan was just mini of the decade for me so far.
The Slan that they showed in this preview thing.
Yeah, I think it's better than Croak. I think I'll enjoy it more than Croak, and that's I'll be astounded if I don't paint that miniature. But anything can happen in between now and release. But yeah, I think in terms of Games Workshop, that's the thing I'm excited most about, and I think this mini is just excellent. I don't know if I'd ever paint this one, but I think it's brilliant. And especially just things like the banner, because, you know, they started doing physical banners, you know, on Space Marines with like the sculpted stuff instead of freehand or whatever. But this is such a nice balance of, you know, it's all sculpted. There's nothing you need to freehand and things like that. And it's got like a lightning effect, but it's kind of worked. It's like they've got better at that, you know, a physical icon.
I guess it suits them, right, with the whole totem thing, but on the Slaves to Darkness release, all the standards for those units, they're either like a bit like this, right, so there's no cloth anyway, or it's a blank flag with nothing on.
That's the way to go.
I'm not a fan of the sculpted detail on banners, nor really on cloaks and things like that. Like it's the norm now. It's been like that for 6-7 years, something like that. But I've not come round to it. It's not my cup of tea. You know, I know Ben, our commissions chief, painted a load of what they call Blood Knights recently, and they've all got really intricate molded standards on them. And it's just it's like it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of colouring in. I think, to do for it. But I mean, that was obviously a fantastic re-release, that range, as were the Slaves of Darkness. And I think the Lizard Men are looking on track to be an absolute belter again. From a personal point of view, I haven't seen one duffer yet.
No, they're the Saurus, the shields are just so cool, right?
So I'm sure when we get the actual release later in the year, I'm sure we'll talk about them a bit again. But say when we were doing our picks, this had just been announced, so there was a lot of excitement. I don't know how you do an army of them though. Right.
I wouldn't. I would love an army of them. I never will, but like it'd be brilliant. But you know, I did the Underworld's warband quickly, and that was still like to paint them better, you know. But yeah, I think for me, just paint them as characters and enjoy them, you know. I think just looking at the heavy metal job on those feathers, and it's a brilliant paint job too, but I'd just paint this as one mini and enjoy it. Just try not to think about the army, you know.
You still got a few months to think about it and planning.
I'll just do the frog. It's the best.
How the fuck do you do these on mass? But yeah, absolute belters. What about you, Matt? You I know you more as a fan of 40k and stuff. Do you like the fantasy universes?
I really do like the fantasy, as long as it's orcs and goblins.
Nice. Okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, these are muscly naked things.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the old Lizardman stuff. Like when that Carnosaur first came out, it was just mental. And like, yeah.
Well, the guy on top's great still, right?
Yeah, it's so good still, even now. Like, and that's ages old now. That's what, I don't know how old that is now. But,
got to be around 10 years, I'd have thought. 8 to 10 years, yeah.
But like, it still holds up, and like, this new range is going to be around for another 10 years minimum. Yeah. And it's just going to be amazing to have this range now. Like, they're just, all the core stuff is just getting so good on like all the armies.
It's that. I mean, it's outstanding. I'm sure we're going to spend best part of an episode on them. I think when they're released, we all want to. So let's save it for
the Lizard.
save it for them. What's up next, then?
Oh, it's me.
Was this in the? Didn't I send this as the paint cultist?
Yeah, it was in one, so it's in here now.
Doubled up, is it?
There we go. I stuck it in because I thought you'd like it.
Well, this I picked this because it's specifically the caption was similar to our topic, and that's why I loved it anyway. But the caption I thought rang true with what we're talking about today. And he said, "You know what? Like none of this makes sense, but there's purple reflections in the armor, and there's no purple anywhere near it. But I just did it because it's fun, right? And every now and again, I want to do a mini like that where it's just for the colors." And I was like, that's the point. You know, you can do what you want, basically. Yeah. But also, this is when I was doing Wood Elves in 2006. This was just my favorite miniature. I think I painted 2, and I wanted to paint 4, 1 for each season. And it was really nice just to see it again. I think it still holds up.
Such a cool model.
It's the definitive Wood Elf for me. Yeah. From that, like, not old school Warhammer stuff. When I got back into it at like 18, 19, this was peak basically. And I think the way he's painted the sword is just so fun. The colors, you could say they're leaves reflecting in the chrome or whatever. But yeah, really, really like his stuff. And it was so cool to see a modern paint job on this classic mini now. We'll call it a classic.
It's a classic, yeah.
That blade is so cool.
I wonder if, in a way, like you're saying, like you just paint it because it looks cool. You know, if you go before this era, so the real classic sort of middle hammer or early middle hammer, when everything was red spear shafts and red this, that, the other, you know, there was no realism there in that sense, right?
No.
But it looked great. So, you know, and this feels different in the sense that this isn't just someone taking a Primaris Marine and painting it like a second edition Ultramarine, right? Not there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying that's deliberately mimicking the old style, right? But, you know, it would be nice to maybe see. Well, we're going to talk about it, I guess, in the main topic, aren't we? But it would be nice to see some sort of more, you know, not giving a fuck about realism and making sense and all the rest of it, and just painting colours.
Well, I think we should, when we get into the main topic, talk about that, because I've got some more stuff to say on it. But yeah, I thought it was on topic in what he said in the caption, and it really was great to read. And what a cool looking mini.
Cessus in the chat just saying sound keeps going quiet from time to time. Is that all the sound? Is that one of us in particular? Let us know. It could just be your headphones. I don't know. Let's have a go. What's the next slide then? I do love that model for this, man. Oh, nice. Talking about old school vibes.
Give me the moss pads.
Yes. I couldn't resist when I saw it on the feed the other day. I was just like, yeah, this is so good. I just love the
stripy trousers.
It's just got everything. It's even got the completely overused man running away from the giant kit.
Yeah, man.
That's in every single diorama.
That's super cool. I don't think I know this account. As usual, we'll stick all the accounts down in the description that we mention, so you can go and check them out.
God, I love that moss. I bloody love moss. It's the best.
You're not tired of it?
I might just do a log with moss on it and no mini. It's just a log.
Well, that's a bit like a 2A diorama.
Yeah, basically. But I'll get a plaque saying Mossy Log.
I should have put a picture from the back of it, but there's more stuff around the back as well, which is really cool. It's just packed full of details, and it's got like it's like Matt Parks's giant attack thing, and Matt Sexwish's rotating one. It kind of has that feel for me.
It's got a Matt Parks vibe to it, I think. Just proper Warhammer diorama. That's really cool. I wonder if they're going to take it to any shows.
I think they did say that it was coming to this UK GD.
Oh, wicked!
I think, but yeah, that'd be epic to see in person.
I'd love to see that, and I'm racking my brains for the province, and I can't remember it. But mega great choices. Obviously, Rich doesn't get a choice. He's busy fighting off raccoons and things in the forest. So.
I think he wanted the Space Marines with the Nerf guns. I think he said he's going to do.
He does love them, doesn't he? Yeah. Which is nice. So at least someone does. But
Fifth Element guns, aren't they?
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess that brings us on to meme of the week, and it has been Rich Pickings for last. The last. Thanks very much, everyone who keeps sending them in to me now, and thanks for keeping them largely painting related, which is awesome. There were quite a few that were sent in multiple times by people, so it's as I say, it's been rich pickings for the savagery of Warhammer Online. I don't know what ones Matt went with. What have we got? Because you said you put more than one up.
We've got hashtag
more than one.
Dawngate.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. Honourable mentions to someone who filled it full of sweets, and then just rattled it around and sweeties fell out.
Ferrero Rocher.
Taro for having a replacement part on his store within about an hour of it being revealed. But yeah, this is the anyone who might not know, this is the recent tank kit by Games Workshop that used spruce base to put additional things on rather than a panel for the bottom of the tank.
I'd rather have the panel than the crappy sponsons.
There we go.
I'd rather have all the gubbins. I'll never paint the bottom of a tank.
There we go.
Never get used.
It's the principle, Matthew.
It was a real gift. Real gift. It gave people all sorts of things to get angry at each other about. So yeah, thanks for that, GW. And yeah, I don't know if we've got any of the I don't even know what they're called. The
big
fucking submarine thing.
I didn't get any of those.
Submarine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did put a poll out to see who's actually going to paint the bottom of the tank.
Oh yeah.
So we've got
wow.
yes 618, yes but lying 421,
Accurate.
no 335. So it's
There we
pretty much
go.
no.
Well, the stats don't lie, do they?
Wow.
So there you go. It's I genuinely don't know if it's an issue.
It's not,
because a lot of it felt like people just shouting to be relevant, right? But
I mean, you can put the point forward that for the amount that it would have cost them, they could have just thrown in an extra sprue, spaced them out a bit more, whack it on, cost them fractions of a penny. It's a bit weird they didn't. But then if they had done it, the kit probably would have been an extra tenner just because of profit margins.
Yes, Piers. I think it was Hockland. I think that's a great shout. Yeah, it's an odd one, but it's certainly generated plenty of chat about the kit. And I really like the job Ben did on our review copy. I think it looks wicked, and as did a lot of people on there. And I'm already seeing some nice conversions where people are. The common one seems to be working on the turret quite a lot. Whether that's replacing it entirely or getting proper, in inverted commas, modeling kit, cannon barrels and things like that, and using that. And there's definitely some nice ones showing up. So yeah, not too bad. Right, main topic. We generally shy away from doing clickbaity things and titles and all the rest of it, but this one couldn't really avoid it. But Andy'd been chatting a while back about, I think it came to a head really when you were doing your Eldar project as well, didn't it? Just this idea of the painting meta and these perceived like cardinal rules of miniatures painting, like you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. What are they? Why do they exist? What is this painting meta? And we said that sounds like something that could be a fun chat. So you're up.
Yeah, what's the painting meta? What is it? I think it's just mantras basically that seem to only have come in miniature painting. And some of them are, some of them are funny and a bit meaningless. But then there's definitely a painting meta when it comes to competitions and it's trends, basically, things people are doing. I think there's always been one, and it's probably different now because there's the internet and there'll be some kind of painting meta coming from Instagram. But yeah, it's these things mostly that you see in comment threads, not on Instagram, but on Facebook. It's definitely a different world, Facebook.
It's different.
I avoid it. It is different. But yeah, the comments in there. I think it's interesting for a new person because they must come into it and then they're like, oh, I'm struggling to stay within the lines. And people were like, make sure you draw your barrels. And they're like, draw my barrels, but how can I learn to stay in the lines first? Like, what's more important? No, nothing matters. Just draw your barrels. All right, doesn't matter how well.
Yeah, so you mean someone new's come in, shared their paint job.
Yeah.
And the first comment someone makes is nothing to do with their painting.
Yeah, some stuff like that. But it's just these reoccurring mantras, and I think that it's important to be aware of them so that it means you still have a happy hobby, because you might get comments, people telling you to do this, do that, and you don't have to do anything. But I think I learned that from doing my army, which I had to change for me. And then obviously I do competitions too. So I felt there's different sides of these painting metas that kind of come about, really. I actually read, and this was an interesting one because I read it this week, and it was a chap who posted like, hi, I've just got into the hobby and I want to do bright silver, but every tutorial I watch, they just put on lead belcher and a null wash and that's it. And that makes a really dark silver. How do you do bright silver? And I was like, well, that is the painting meta, that the method to paint silver is lead belch and Nuln Oil. And how has that come about? But that is one example of a bit of a painting meta, is the most used method. And it's like, it comes from, a lot of it will come from Games Workshop with those tutorials and what the heavy metal people do, because they kind of set the standard and they're the most viewed. And then there's stuff just people parroting, basically. So I think that's the basis of where these different things come from.
So when you move away from the, as you say, something like a GW model, which we'll come back to, the whole base coat wash, highlight, dry brush, underpainting, all this sort of thing. When you move away from the GW style, a style of which I would say you and me certainly have never really painted in. Neither of us came really back via that, and have chosen to not pursue it. As we paint. Obviously, there's elements of it and there's crossovers, but by the by, do you see it in, say, competition painting? With you're talking about, they're not gimmicks necessarily. That's a specific thing, but yet there's trends, isn't there? And I think one of the ones that was a sort of trend or a gimmick or whatever that's just become almost de facto is NMM, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you see common things that, like, I know there's one you've often said to me about this idea that you should always go up to white for your highlights, and you really resented that and I think I agree with you. I think any ultimate absolute statement is usually not worth listening to. But
that's a big one. Yeah, that's a meta.
Is what's that like? In the competition side of it, are there many?
I think, well, just to touch on that one, go up to white. I think, those are things that can like reoccur in a comment thread. But another one is that I hear all the time is never mix white or never mix black for shades, and I don't like that.
As
never
mix statement.
It in. Yeah, never. People, I might do a workshop, I might do something like that, and I might mix some white, and people will say, "Oh, but I was told you should never use white," and it's kind of like, why? Oh, because it desaturates the color. But what if you want to desaturate it? Oh yeah, then it's fine. So, but that's a big one, just like a mantra that I've heard so many times over the years. Oh, but I was told never use white. People have said that to me a lot of times, and so that is part of this meta. Oh, I was told that I should, never use white, so I never do, even if it might be useful. I mean, there are kind of like, there's a longer explanation where it could be, it's beneficial in most situations to maybe use something with some color in. So white isn't always a good choice, but the reason is this, that it desaturates quicker, blah, blah, blah. But it's these shortened answers that I think can be a problem. And there's definitely things, talking about this subject, painting meta, there's positives that we'll talk about later about how trends can trickle down and people were more creative in general. But then there's also these negative ones, I think, where, people parrot these phrases that don't understand them. And then people are avoiding things which are actually fine. So I think that's it. But that one, like non-metallic metal always going to white, well, you don't have to do that, but you can. I think that's the answer for most things, isn't it? Well, no, you don't have to, but you can if you want. But it's this black and white. You must drill your barrels. Never mix white. These are the kind of the metas that I wanted to talk about.
I suppose in a way, sorry, Matt.
I was going to say, I've always found that the comments are always something along the lines of more contrast as well, which is just like, why?
Yeah.
And they mostly mean value contrast, right?
Yeah.
But that's where again, exactly the same as I was saying before, it's a snippet of the information. And I just think imagine if you're new and everyone's like, more contrast, and you're like, which one? Like, what, more contrast paint? Yeah, that's made it worse, right? So they're putting more and more Nuln Oil on. I say more contrast, I keep putting on Nuln Oil and stuff like that. But I think I would like to ask someone who's new into the hobby, but I did see, I think it was yesterday, someone like, every single tutorial was just silver and the Nuln Oil wash. How do you do bright silver? And it's like, or you buy Vallejo Chrome. It's much better than lead pelture. You have a lovely time, and stuff like that, really.
Okay, so let's go back then to we'll talk about competition painting, because I would like to dig into that more, because
yeah, for sure,
it definitely feels like there's trends and almost preconceived standards or whatever. But I'm sure someone will quite rightly ask, oh fuck it, let's talk about it now. Someone will quite rightly ask, like,
let's do it now.
What, like, there obviously needs to be standards, to be able to be a competition, right? To be able to judge, to be able to compare and all the rest of it. But yeah, where okay, so you're getting into the painting world now, right? The competitive painting scene. Call it competitive painting, call it display painting, whatever you want to call it. Even in the time we've been sort of almost just doing the show, but certainly in the last few years, it's the accessibility and the exposure you get now to pieces that are painted for competition, for display, to be judged, are everywhere, right? You can access them anyway. It's no longer cool mini or not, go via the ratings. It's no longer putty and paint. It's everywhere. How do you, as you say, how do you then approach that? As someone, is it good having these preconceived things where you go, okay, well, I'm going to enter this competition. If I'm going to do display painting, I have to do NMM.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, and I was going to say that before, that I definitely think non-metallic metals, the most talked about subject in this particular thing we're talking about, and it comes from a lot of the stuff that wins might have it on, for example. And then you get this meta of like, oh, you have to do it to win, but it's not really like that. It's more, who's painting it and what are their personal choices, and it will often coincide that how good a painter is. Maybe that just coincides with their taste. A good example, we'll go back to NMM, but a big rumor came when the Skink Priest got first, second, third at Golden Demon. And everyone said, "Oh, it's because it's new, and that's why it won the Golden Demons." And it's like, well, no, it was new, so it excited great painters, and great painters will always win, and that's just the mini they chose. I think it was Soper, and then two other basically well-known painters in the top three. It's like Camelson, you got the usual suspects in the top three basically. But that for a while was like, in Golden Demon, you have to paint a new model to win, and that was definitely a thing people said. Yeah, but that year, all the skink one, and it had just come out, and it's like no, and that's the same thing as like David Soper will probably paint non-metallic metal most of the time, and whenever he enters, he's going to win because it's David Soper, right? And that's where people think, oh, you need non-metallic metal to win. And it's like, yeah, but if David uses true metallics, he's going to win as well. So it's kind of down to the person. But I think a lot of painters, if they're into that, if they're into competitions, they're obviously into pushing themselves. And painting non-metallic metal is a really big way of pushing yourself because it's difficult to pull off the effect. So it's a nice challenge. For me, I like the illustration style. And if you want to do that style, you don't have to. But NMM just works for that because you're painting in all your highlights anyway. So you kind of want to do it with the gold. But yeah, non-metallic metal definitely isn't a compulsory thing to win competitions. And that is, I think, something, that people might often get wrong. And that's definitely what we're talking about here. So there's kind of a difference between the meta and the myths. But that's definitely a myth of... you have to do non-metallic metal for competition.
Well, let's talk about the meta then in competitive painting in the last 12 months. We've had not quite 12 months of in-person shows, but near enough, right? Where's it at the minute then? Where are the trends? Where is the meta, as it were? And we'll talk about this from a gaming point of view as well. But yeah, where are you seeing things? Where are things developing? You know, because the meta it is different. We're not just talking about things you have to do. This is also worth going. What is popular at the minute? Why is it popular? You know,
well,
it be something you
thing.
pursue?
Yeah, I think these are the good things that can come out of it. And we just put the video of how to do painted on shadows, and that's a perfect example of the positive things that the painting meta can do. Will just said backdrops, and that we could talk about that as well, because that's definitely painting meta, the backdrops that have come in. But the painted on shadow effect, people have done it for a long time. I can't think of anyone else who brought it more into the foreground than Ruben Martinez. I think he was the one who was, Banshee was doing it too, but I think he would do it on some pieces, whereas Ruben would probably include it on every piece. To a really obvious is the wrong word, but it was like, whoa, this model has shadows that are painted on, and it was a really strong effect, right? And then I think now people like Eric Swinson are doing it on all his figures too. And, Ruben was doing it a little while ago, and then Eric's, come through, and he's, a huge painter now, and he's winning all the shows he's going to, getting the best of show at Monty. And he's really into those effects, and that just helps. So you've got these people going to shows, winning, and if they do these effects, then it will trickle down. And even stuff like, putting out that video. It's got no views on it because it's not a Games Workshop thing on our channel. But if someone wants to learn how to do the shadows, I think that video is very easy to follow. And that's how these things can grow, right?
Dan asking in the chat, is James Tarot the ultimate competition painting meta?
Well, yeah, you have to have a tarot plinth, otherwise who are you?
So speaking of like styles as well, you mentioned Eric then, and I guess we could kind of talk about the miniatures a little bit as well. It feels as an enthusiastic observer of competitions and someone with a vested interest in them, it feels like the last year we've seen more, and I can't think of a better way to describe it than more cartoony stuff coming to the fore. Like, if we want to be really, really basic with it, less grim and horrible and dark, and much more bright, colourful cartooning. And I don't mean those in any negative sense whatsoever. It's not meant as a slur. Would you say that's fair? Like, it feels like, I don't know, I see a lot of box art come out, and it feels like a lot of the box art we're seeing for miniatures is going towards that style as well. I think it's a style someone like you could probably produce a really fantastic piece with, given that I know how much you enjoy anime and things like that. It feels like there's a natural lean towards that art style, like, as an influence.
Yeah, it definitely trickles down from the most, prevalent painters or whatever. And then within the box art world, a lot of the box art world is dominated by the Spanish guys who are amazing. So you got Ruben, you got Mark, who's doing a lot of the box arts. And then there's newer people like Sergio Vilches, who was trained by other Sergio. So it's confusing. But he's doing a lot of box art now, and it's amazing. But he's doing the same style because he was taught by them and influenced by them. So then that all comes. So then you got a lot of the box art world dominated by these kind of Spanish guys. And then I think people like myself and whoever will want to emulate that. And then it spreads in this way, right? Especially if it's a popular model. So if you've got a figure that's selling well, that's going to change it too. So what's the miniature like? Is it going to be a popular one? Like, is it a bust that's particularly sells super well, like Robot Rocket did years ago? They did the samurai lady holding a rose, and it was everywhere. So it's like, who does the box art? And that sets a standard because everyone's looking at that box art, right? And then it can spread that way.
Okay. So if you were, and I'm just fishing for tidbits here, really, but if you were, if you were someone, we do get emails, we do get questions about it. If you were someone looking to get into it this year, I know the answer is paint what you love, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
boring. What would you say? What would be your picks? What would be like a, this is going to get painted, or this style is going to get painted, this miniature is going to get painted. This would be a really great way for you, if you want, to use as a barometer with where you sit against your peers and things like that. Would you say what are you expecting to see over the next year's shows? Do you think the trend's going to continue? Do you think we're going to stick with this vibrant, sort of, lush, vibrant, colourful paint jobs we seem to be seeing coming out? Like, it feels to me like you said, a lot of the Spanish crew, obviously prolific, but I feel like Mark's stuff's moving a little into Mark now, and then there's a lot of the Spanish style. Like, is that fair? Like, I
don't know. I think there's always the guys that are just being, the most looked at or whatever, and the most popular minis. It spreads out, and people always try and emulate that. And I think generally when it becomes a larger scale, I think saying less options or fewer options is the wrong thing to say. But when you go larger, you maybe are more likely to do lots of like highlighting on the skin and things like that. Otherwise, it won't be realistic. Whereas maybe with the smaller stuff, you can do, well, basically, you're not going to do a bust in a gaming style, probably, right? Maybe it's slightly narrow with larger stuff. But when you talk about gaming miniatures, it could be a bigger thing. So I think in general, when people move to painting larger figures, in some slight form or another, it probably is going to have that kind of illustration feel to it, because you're going to be learning, you're like, right, I'm going to do my first bust, and I know that I can't edge highlight the face. I need to learn how to do things maybe a little more natural, whether it doesn't have to be really natural or like, crazy, but it's probably going to be in that wheelhouse, right, of trying to make the face convincing, and therefore there's going to be some area of realism, I think. But also it's really hard, right? So if you're trying to do your first bust, you're going to look at references, and it probably isn't going to be photos. And I always say to people, there's an order to look at your references, and you go real first to learn the lessons, 2D art because they're better than us in the most part, and then you look at the miniatures. But most people go straight to the miniatures. And, for me, if I'm painting a bust, or when I was first painting a bust, it's pretty terrifying. And you do always look to those box arts, and you hunt down other paint jobs and stuff like that. I think the best thing for the miniature community in general is when lots of people paint a figure at different levels. And I think that's, when you look at the Warhammer community thing, sometimes people go, oh, these aren't like amazing. And it's like, well, good, because that helps. Because, a box art can do a few things. It can inspire, but it can also make people feel bad and not want to paint the models. And so the more people that actually paint it, I think it just really helps with the painting community when you get different levels of a different miniature. And that's why I think miniatures can snowball not in the Games Workshop world, because everything sells for Games Workshop, but when like a bust or a figure gets really popular from a small brand, that's quite unusual for something to really snowball. But as soon as people get it in their hands and start doing different versions, I think that really helps. But I keep thinking about that robot rocket bust, because there was a period just where every day you were seeing a different paint job, which was great, because that meant the world of painting things aren't Games Workshop is growing, because people who maybe never done a bust before, that was probably a first bust for a lot of people. And the little meta on that was she had a t-shirt and everyone did a freehand on it. Every single person, because the box art had like a cat on it, and then someone else would do like an ice cream. But there was just this free space, and it was, quite a sci-fi figure, so you could do what you want. And that became a little thing. And people probably didn't think about it, but they're just like, oh, I've got to do a t-shirt design. I'll do a dog, And it was just a thing. And you would be like, all right, what color have they gone for? Fluorescent pink or fluorescent green? And then what's their animal they've painted on the t-shirt? That was definitely a thing for a couple of years, which is kind of strange thinking about it now, but yeah, definitely. And I don't know what year that was, 2015, 16. You'd see a new paint job on that bust every day.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's good. It's good because that means people were trying freehands on busts, which is super cool, right? It just helps if you get these little trends or these little metas come about. Then it's cool because people try more adventurous stuff, and I think that's the best thing about the internet. And there's a lot of negatives, but the best thing about Instagram and YouTube is things like painting shadows, freehands, bust, whatever. They aren't reserved for some upper echelon of a few people, right? It just helps.
Well, I mean, that's potentially a very interesting one. So, and we are splitting things out a little bit here. We are talking about trends. We're also talking about, I suppose, inspirational techniques or execution of things, which, as you say, can then lead on to people emulating it, and so it's a good circle, whatever the word is, positive loop. But you mentioned there about freehand and how it's not. You don't all have to be Richard Gray to enjoy freehand and to do a freehand. And on the flip side, if you do not want to do freehand, you don't have to, and you can still produce an incredible looking piece.
Mm.
And I'm thinking here about Golden Demon, because obviously that's where Rich competes. I've seen a lot of really great paint jobs where it feels like someone feels they have to do some freehand on it to do it, and it then ruins the model. It just drags the whole thing down, and actually it would have been a better piece just without it on. But they have felt they have to do it because that's what you have to do to get, gold, silver, bronze, or whatever. And I think that's one of the more negative sides of it, right?
Yeah, the negative side of the painting meta is the pressure to do things in a certain way. That's why we titled this "Don't Drill Your Barrels." And do you know what? It looks better if you drill your barrel. What do you call it when you get like a 45-degree angle when you drill something out? What's that called? I can't think of the word. Tapering it on the inside. What's that called?
Like beveling the
yeah, well, that's what I say. Yeah, I'm like, do you bevel your barrels? Do you countersink to all these people? And like, no. And I'm like, lazy. Like, it's like if you're going to say drill your barrels, well, then you've got to countersink it and bevel it too. No one does that, do they? Right? Like, because it looks crap if it's just a straight 0.5 mil hole. No, you got to do a 1.2 millimeter hole, and then you need to bevel it with a 1.4. Otherwise, I'm not interested in you drill the barrels. But yeah, I think that there can be some negative aspects, and that's what I wouldn't like people to get into, of like, oh, you have to do these certain things. I think that's sad. A big one for me I experienced with the army was edge highlighting, which is obviously, it's edge highlighting is a thing because Games Workshop's the biggest brand and it's the most notorious technique, right? Say notorious, but it's just a thing people talk about. And the heavy metal painters are amazing, and they edge highlight absolutely perfectly, and it makes it defines the models we've talked about before, makes them look really great on the website. But I didn't edge highlight my Elder Army recently, and I found it very interesting. People couldn't get their heads around it, and that's really where we started discussing what is this painting meta, because people are like, well, you have to edge highlight. People said to me, I have to edge highlight, and I was like, why? Like, you really don't. What do an edge highlight do? It does make things look better, but it takes a lot of time. So there's positives and negatives to every technique, and you have to adjust that to your lifestyle, right? And that's where all these things. And I'd hate for people who've got like an hour a week to paint. Say they've got kids, they've just started the hobby, so that they can't ingrain it into doing it every day like we have. They're like, well, I do get 1 hour where everyone is out of the house, so that's I've got 1 hour a week. And people are saying, oh, you have to edge highlight every edge. And he's like, okay, so it takes me an hour to highlight a model. I get an hour a week. So yeah, I'll be edge highlighting for 2 years for this army, right? It's just not possible. So I just feel that you shouldn't really put these pressures on people when you don't know their situation with painting. And it can be very different how much time people get to paint. And you can join in with those pressures or not, right?
Absolutely. But I think as well, there's certain comments. I mean, that's quite a broad one, isn't it? That's just sort of generally disrespectful of someone's circumstances. That's just ignorance of someone's circumstances. But I think there's some specific tropes or standards or whatever you want to call it that people demand that happen that are actually detrimental to people painting. So you use, for example, bulk gunmetal and a non-oil wash. Sorry, lead belcher and a non-oil wash.
It'll always be bulk gunmetal.
When I came back into the hobby, I came back watching a tutorial where they used oil washes and enamel washes. They didn't use Games Workshop washes. So when I came back in, that was how I learned to do it, and I never went back. And consequently, I've never painted my metal. Very rarely have I ever used normal washes, acrylic washes. It's funny, I was chatting to Ben today about it and saying maybe I should have a play around with that and see what I like, because I do like some of the things it brings. But I also have to reflect and go, well, I've painted 10 years worth of some fairly decent looking miniatures in that time where there's not been an acrylic wash anywhere near any of it. And acrylic washes bring a whole heap of challenges anyway. I'm familiar with them. I use them occasionally, but I don't use them to the same level. I would argue I would argue you get as nice, if not a nicer finish using an oil wash over a thing. But you'd want to demonstrate it to someone, right? You want to say why it happens. But if it has to be lead belcher, non-oil, what if you don't like it? What if you just don't like that look? And it is a proper look, isn't it? It has a very definite finish, and look to it with that. So it's not helpful for people. One of the other ones, and I will talk Games Workshop specific with this, because they are outside of competition painting, and even within competition painting, they are a hugely influential voice in painting miniatures, right?
It's your gateway, right? It's normally your way in, so it's right. Very important the standard they set.
They've always delivered they've always delivered levels of painting guides and how to, but they are very often the same way of painting, you just do it less well, if that makes sense. And I wonder, and I'm sure this is a much larger conversation, but I feel like I would get a better result if I painted in a different way.
Agree.
Right. That I could execute all the stages of, rather than try to follow the perceived wisdom of base coat, wash, highlight, whatever, but not do it terribly well, or have the time to execute it. And that
was my point. Yeah,
it's detrimental, isn't it?
Well,
James
I was
paints Absalom 502 oils. I must have a look at that, because I friggin' love them. To look what he said.
I was thinking with the whole wash, going back to the wash, the non-oil wash thing. why don't you just paint it silver? And it's kind of this whole obsession. Oh, here we go. Obsession with having to highlight, shade, and all this stuff, and finding the quickest way to get there. But if you're like, I just want a game, that means these miniatures are playing pieces. They aren't maybe a display model. They are playing pieces. So if you're doing a Stormcast army, why don't you just paint them silver and block in the other coloured bits? What's wrong with plain lead belcher? Knock a stage out, because you're using metallic paint anyway. That does your highlights and shadows. So why do you need to wash it? Like, would there be anything wrong if you're like, I want to play this game, I'm not interested in painting, could you not spray it gold like Stormcast, block in the blue parts, block in the silver parts, and it's done? But everyone will tell you need a wash, you need more contrast, but it's a playing piece. And if I add a wash, It won't be bright gold anymore. It'll be dull. And I'd rather have flat, bright gold rather than dull down stuff with a little bit of shading, right? So I think that's a big one. And that's where I was really thinking about doing my Eldar. It's like these are playing pieces. It's different from a miniature I want to add to competition or display. It's changing its thing. And if it is a playing piece, then what's wrong with it being black for the black parts and bone for the bone parts? Because when I was playing, the whole Elder army came from me playing Dawn of War, and there's no edge highlights on Dawn of War. It's just there's black bits and then there's bone parts for Old Way. And I was thinking, that's fine, isn't it? So it does look better let's just say it does look better if you shade something, you highlight something, right? It's got more stage, it's going to be more defined, you see the details better, right? But will plain gold applied really nicely, like say you get a spray can and you get a perfectly even, really nice, beautiful gold, will that look better than if you do a bad wash and then a bad edge highlight wriggly like this that takes you ages? Are you making something look worse and taking time on it? Or is it you need to go through that because when you can do that well, it will look better? But I certainly don't like this pressure that you have to shade stuff, you have to highlight stuff. If your purpose is, well, this is a plain piece, I just think it's kind of weird. It's like when you play Monopoly, they're all silver, aren't they? So if you're playing Silver Stormcast, why can't you spray them silver? I do think you should block the stuff in, but I like stuff base coated cleanly more than I do badly done highlights and shades.
Yeah, but you agreed. And you're almost saying, oh, you either accept that it is not painted, as it were, it's simply coloured in, or it's the. Whereas actually, I think metals is an interesting one. When I got back in, there was nowhere near as many paint ranges as we've got now. And Vallejo did this range called Liquid Metal, which is this alcohol-based metallic paint. And I actually picked it up from a kitchen display shop because it's used for like gilting things like mirrors and things like that. But it was a few of the, admittedly at the time, very few gaming Warhammer type YouTubers at the time were using the chrome and the gold and stuff and not doing anything to it, because when you painted it on, it looked gold. It didn't look like gold paint, it looked like gold. And the larger the miniature, the better it looked, because obviously it started to naturally cast its own shadows and that type of thing. But there's like people, I would still happily use that now for like the trim of something, because it looks amazing, but it's a very definite look. Like you would know it. You would glance at that miniature and it would,
whoa,
that's different. And you might not like it. And I get that too. But if you do like it, then that was the right product, wasn't it, to use? And I think there's it. As bizarre as it seems, we're bombarded, aren't we, with different paint jobs now, wherever you go on social media you follow. But I don't know. I don't often feel like I see particularly original or individual takes on things. Feels an awful lot like you have a handful of staid styles that people execute to a varying degree of quality.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And I don't know whether that's a product of, as I say, the painting method, whether it's a product of simply, I don't want to fucking think about this, I just want to copy what someone else is doing, which I totally get too.
Well, that's the thing you should always do, right? It's you need to find what you like the most. You always need to not really care about what everyone says. Find the miniatures that you like the most, and if you want to emulate that, then that's cool, because that's the only point of miniatures, to look cool. So you need to find the style where you think it looks coolest, and then you do that. And if they're doing it a certain way, certain techniques, of course you copy it like that. But it's it's the pressure that you shouldn't give in to, right? If someone says do it this way, then it's not. You just don't. And I felt that lad who was asking about the silver, that was such a good thing, right? It's like, I really want bright silver, but everyone keeps telling me to put this null oil stuff on it. Like, why do I have to do that? You don't. Paint it chrome. It'll look great. It'll definitely look interesting. Clayton's put a good comment saying, it's ironic the main straight for metallic paints that reflects light, and then you kill that by putting a wash over it. And that's kind of what I mean. And then someone else has put, how do you navigate the advice? And I think it's always, if someone says, do this, then you just need to think about, well, what will it do? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And then ultimately, then you choose if you want to do that. So someone goes, you've got to drill the barrels. And you go, okay, what does drilling the barrels do? It will make the barrel of the Space Marine probably look better. However, if I get it slightly off center, it will look worse.
Yeah.
Whereas if I paint a black dot, I've got a couple attempts at it. But how many times? Well, I mean, it's not been loads of times, but I have drilled a barrel and it snapped the barrel in half. So I've had to bin the whole miniature, or like get a new gun. Like that has happened. Drilling a barrel's ruined stuff. So yeah, even though I think drilling the barrels does look better, and it's something that you should try and do because it will look cooler, you definitely don't have to do it. And there's a disadvantage, an advantage like everything else, right? So you just got to think if you can be asked.
Yeah. I mean, Luke's saying, aren't you supposed to re-highlight the silvers again? I mean, you certainly can. But again, now it's that.
Then you've added 2 stages that are superfluous. Just paint it silver and it's finished.
But equally, I totally get that. Sometimes I look at that classic GW style of a metal that's been washed with an acrylic and then re-highlighted, and sometimes I really like it. Rich did it with some Necrons.
Yeah.
And I thought it looked fantastic. So again, it's that, but equally, until recently, I've never felt the need to do metals in that way. James saying Stormbolter is the real test of barrel drilling. Absolutely.
That's it, right?
I would say for every 10 Marines I do, 2 to 3 of the barrels are wonky. But my level of giving a fuck is pretty low now. When it comes to gaming, right?
Because you do it, right? But then you've drilled it, so you do give enough of a shit to drill it in the first place.
Absolutely. Because I enjoy that part of modelling, if that makes sense. Like I like the kit to sort of all be at the same level of, like, because I will go out and scribe and redo pieces if I think it needs it. But an element of that is simply sort of enjoying completing the model. In that sense,
I agree with you. I think it's a thing you should do. But every time I see the comment "drill a barrel," I'm like, "You beveling it, bro?" Stuff like that. Are you hollowing out your exhausts and putting the floating exhaust in?
Right.
No.
I do drill all my exhaust barrel holes though.
Yeah, I think it's great. It makes it look more realistic, finer, and stuff like that. But yeah.
But are there any? Thing, right? So we sort of fixated a little bit on the. On the barrel thing, but are there any other ones, Matt, Andy, that you can think of that you just wish people wouldn't stress about?
I think edge highlighting is a big one. I wish people wouldn't stress about, because I remember I painted my Ultramarines army a few years ago, and I felt I had to edge highlight those because I thought people would think they were no good and wouldn't respect it. That's probably, if I'm being really honest, that's probably what I thought. Thought people will think that I suck unless I edge highlight these really, really well. And if I did an Ultramarines army again, I wouldn't edge highlight them because my style preference has changed. And I would prefer them to have more damage and be that more realistic style. But that's because I've learned to just do what I enjoy, but I definitely followed the painting metas when I was just getting back into the hobby 2014, 2015. I was new back into it, a couple of years back to the hobby. And for sure, I would think for myself less, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't have the confidence to do what I wanted, if that makes sense. I felt like, oh, I've got to do this, otherwise people will think I suck.
Yeah, but I mean, guidelines are good, right? It gives you
Yeah.
something fun. I mean, Adam's saying in the chat, he feels that you learn the rules so that you can then basically break them, decide what you like and what you don't like. Scott's saying painting eyes. There's really no need on a tabletop miniature.
It's very stressful, so he's not wrong.
I was going to say sort of eye lenses and gems. Actually, one of my favourite ways to paint them is silver and then a clear. And again, that just is from how I got back into the hobby. That's how they used to paint them on, still paint them on the your tank kits and things like that. And actually, does it photograph as well as a beautifully painted lens? No, not at all. I love how it looks in person. And I think there's definitely an element there of you are going to need to take the criticism and well-meaning advice and all the rest of it.
That's it.
If you want to present your work in a specific way. So if your way of sharing your work is via social media, you have to bear that in mind. You have to think about the things that will affect that. If your way of sharing your work is with your friends, gloves are off, really. You can kind of do literally whatever you want. But I imagine as well there's an element of, and you mentioned it, painting the box art stuff. Box art kind of has to look good in a photo from one or two angles. Has to sell the thing. But that then wouldn't stand up in a competition necessarily.
No way.
So I think there's an element there, isn't there, of you think about what it is why are you painting this miniature? How do you want the miniature to be viewed? And that can help it. Does anyone else feel that GW's models have become more detailed? The heavy metal style has become more incongruous. I don't know about incongruous, but I'm definitely noticing significant shifts in the heavy metal style.
I think that is a great thing to mention, and I think that comes from Max and downwards, because all the guys in the team are fantastic, but I think they're getting more freedom and they're doing more stuff, and there's battle damage on things. And I just remember talking to Max about the battle damage on the Heresy, and we were all excited to see it. And yeah, they do edge highlight everything super sharp still, which looks amazing. But with everything else, there's every technique in Games Workshop heavy metal stuff. It isn't a one-dimensional style. Actually, they just paint things very, very well. That's what defines the heavy metal job, as it's super technically great, right? As opposed to people might just say, oh, it's just edge highlighted. Well, no, it's actually painted to the highest level. And they do battle damage, they render stuff, they do non-metallic stuff, like they did non-metallic for Sigfold because it suited it, even though it doesn't, the rest of the Slanesh army isn't. And that's cool. So definitely that helps. But I think it's down to the newer painters that I go, well, when I painted my miniatures in my own time, I had battle damage. So should we battle damage these guys that are fighting? So I think that helps a bunch as well, right? And most people are going to look at Games Workshop miniatures and do that. And if Games Workshop stuff's got battle damage on, then that means battle damage becomes more commonplace, and that just helps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But then leads you down the path of, if we look at it from a gaming point of view, we were both very heavily involved in the Heresy painting scene. We still are. I mean, we did the White Scars Army for launch last year as well. There became some very, very strong opinions on how, if you were painting a Heresy model, it had to be painted.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
And I would like to think that actually that has largely disappeared over the last few years. And we see a lot more freedom of expression with how people paint them. And I don't know whether that was people fixating and sort of star fucking certain painters, or whether it was, it was such a relief from the heavy metal style You know, there was this perception that perhaps it was more acceptable to paint at a lower level because you were simply saying, oh, it's all battle damaged and grimy and dirty, you know, and actually it was easier to execute at that perceived lower level. You know, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't. I'm just looking for reasons with it. But it was certainly, I found, a daunting prospect to be heavily involved in that painting scene and to be worrying about how it would be received, how I was painting something. Now, I never changed stuff because of that, but it was certainly a consideration. And that I don't think is a very positive environment, right? As I said, I don't think it's the case now at all. I think people are loving it. They're expressing different styles. And again, I love that classic, heavily weathered, dirty, sort of realistic style that we saw championed in the Imperial Armor books, and now people have taken on and you know and done their own way. But I know when we did the White Scars Army, I deliberately chose to do some things differently on that than I had done previously because it felt like a good thing to do. You know, to keep, not to stagnate with it. And I think we did an episode purely talking about heresy painting, actually. Now I come to think of it, a while ago. But yeah, I would say that was my most direct experience of that idea of you have to use this, you have to do that, or it's wrong. And that felt a shame. And I think it's that the reverse of that, I would say, is with the people who aren't aware of that painting style. So all they see is the Games Workshop style, and they think I can't do that, or I don't want it to look like that. What do I do?
Yeah.
Where are these voices coming from that are telling them, well, actually, have you tried a rattle can and an oil wash?
It looks bloody brilliant.
What?
Yeah.
You know, so I think, yeah, on the whole, definitely a force for good. The painting meta, definitely a force for good.
I think it's all about how you interpret the comments, and all that matters is you like your models, and you always just have to find a mini that you like the look of and that resonates with you, and then you go for that. But yeah, you just have to take everything with a pinch of salt, really, don't you? But always make your own choice. But I think that just comes with time of doing the hobby, and all of us are lucky enough that we've done it long enough. We are probably confident to just pursue the style that we want. But certainly, even a few years ago, when you've known me, I definitely felt pressures to do things in a certain way. And I've let go of that now because I don't care. But that has only come with time and experience. I'm just lucky that I've got to that point. But when you're at a point and you don't have that, and you do feel that you want to be steered and ask for advice, then you just have to always, think and gauge it up. But that's, and YouTube's such an important thing now. And I feel, and both of us have a duty of care that we want to be positive in the videos and always say, you can do it this way. Here's an option, right?
Absolutely.
We don't see the point in doing something in a way that already exists. There's no point in doing a tutorial of like paint your Blood Angels red and edge highlight it with Blood Angels red edge highlight. Like that those videos exist. So it's like, well, you can spray it and oil wash it, all that kind of stuff. So I think, just that's the importance of people doing stuff on YouTube where they've got to follow.
Well, I mean, Will say in the chat, he gets uncomfortable when a video title is how to paint X, and in his head it should be how we paint X. That's absolutely true. That's just an algorithm thing, Will, and hopefully you get it from watching the video. In my opinion, the good videos are those people that explain why they're doing things the way they're doing them. But if you want people to actually see your video, putting how to paint at the front of it is a very effective thing. So
you just have to, don't you?
Got to cut a tiny bit of slack with that one. But yeah, it's and that is, again, we don't like to dwell on negative things, but I think there is one of the reasons you get these echo chambers or whatever, or these obsessions with it has to be done this way, it has to be done this way, is you get a lot of people parroting information when they have no idea why they're saying that. They're simply saying it because someone else said it. That might
when you come outside,
but it's more often it'll be a name, and not always do all the names know either. They may well have just simply parroted it as well, and I think that's something that's just unavoidable now, given social media and YouTube and everything. Right? Is that the loudest voices are the ones that will get listened to often. But yeah, it's a challenge. But there was something I remember I read a while ago. Bit of advice someone gave me was, only. I don't want to murder it. It's something along the lines of, you only care about the opinion of someone you would ask for advice from.
Yeah.
So if you're coming into it and you want to learn new things, and you want to feel, look at a painter that you admire or a work someone's done, maybe ask them. Or if someone does put some unsolicited advice on your picture, maybe see what they've done and figure out if actually that opinion matters, because often it won't.
Well, that's it, right?
Yeah, I think. But do drill your barrels.
Yeah. it will look better, but you don't have to do it. You can't be asked. If you only get an hour to hobby a month, then don't worry about it.
Are you fastidious like with all barrels? Like are you drilling barrels on a las gun?
Well, that's the thing I laugh at, is people have the double standard, right? They're like, drill your barrels, and I'm like, get the burr bit off your rim of your base then as well.
Do you know there's a bit on the mold line scraper for that? I told you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Blew my mind. Blew my mind.
Still terrible tool. I can't remember what you asked now.
But that'll do. I think we're just in danger of repeating ourselves. But hopefully that was interesting for people. It was really, thanks chat for chiming in as well. Would you drill out an assault cannon? Yeah.
You have to. Oh, actually, I replaced all my assault cannon barrels with plastic arm once, and then I put a metal pin through it so it span. So
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going full LED, why bother?
GTFO.
Yeah.
Why the tank's not RC?
Yeah. Do you see someone did a Razorback recently?
Yeah.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Reminds me of that massive Bane blade that GW did back in the early 2000s.
Yeah. I hope we see something like that at Whammerfest. I really do. Yeah, because that was they had it at Salute, I think, one year. It might not have been GW, but there was some remote control tanks. That was amazing. Right, let's close out the show with some Paint Cultist stuff. So Paint Cultist is a hashtag you can use predominantly on Instagram. That's where it is, but there's also a little forum on our Discord that people are using as well. So if you don't want to use Instagram, you want somewhere else to display your work, check it out on there. I think we're about 20,000 tags now, which is awesome. So if you would like to expose yourself to maybe different miniatures that you often see, different paint styles, different accounts, just go and check them out. It's great fun. And all I do every couple of weeks is have a look through, grab a few that jump out to me, and we chuck them up. And I can never remember what I picked, which is quite exciting.
For this week,
yeah. Oh, that's right up my street. Yeah, this account has done a bunch of these. And I just think they've got some really lovely effects on display. Like, I love that
rust.
Photo, right?
That rust effect,
isn't it? I mean, I'm a sucker for glossy blood effects. Like, I'm all over that. In fact, that was what I'll be filming first thing in the morning. But yeah, I think that cleaver looks outstanding. Yeah, love it. And
really good metal.
Yeah,
I want to know how he's done that.
Set. So yeah, belter. Good start.
Do you feel like I want to take a bit of sandpaper to it though? I just need to buff it up a bit.
The WD-40. Clean that up. But yeah, there's 3 or 4 of these big Galapox miniatures in that set. And yeah, they've done all of them. So well worth checking out. Who's next? Oh.
He drilled the barrel.
Drilled the barrel and everything. NMM.
Not beveled though.
I've got Dark Angels on my mind. This is why this popped up.
And it's a proper space marine as well.
But what a lovely take on sort of the old art style as well. And yeah, I miss mini marines. Not gonna lie.
I get excited every time I see that helmet design because we see them less and less, right? Yeah. And then when I see that Darth Vader triangle,
I only found out about that really recently.
Didn't I tell you?
Was it? Yeah, it might have been YouTube. I couldn't believe it. I didn't. I still don't really see it, but yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, gutted.
Well, I think it's probably why they want to phase it out. Anyway, let's do a whole episode on that. Yeah, I really want to paint. Yeah, man, that's real.
I know, but look at that. That is 2nd edition Dark Angels green right there.
I highlight mine Goblin green. Yeah. Or the Dark Angels one.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate. I did Dark Angels when I came back in, and that it was 2 steps. It was base coat Dark Angels green, so it turned out just black, and then edge highlight Goblin green. Nothing in between, straight to Goblin green.
To be fair, though, base coating Dark Angels green would have meant 18 stages, right? Of trying to get.
No, I did one.
Any colour from that paint.
No, I did one base.
Just black.
Yes, it didn't. I told you it didn't look good, but that. And then I'll send you a picture. The Goblin green edge highlight.
That and was it Bad Moon Yellow? It was called
Bad Yellow. We used to call it. Just cross out the moon.
Nightmares as a kid, like trying to. Why am I so terrible? Like it's not your fault. But yeah, lovely take on it, that one. Right, what's up next? Ooh, yeah, this one got me tingly.
How do you say it though?
It's got battle damage.
Base.
How do you say what?
Love that base.
Well, do you say 80 or at?
I say at. I'd say ATSD and then at. FYI.
I am not a particularly knowledgeable Star Wars person, but I just think this is cool. Like I would love to grab this and have a go at it. I assume it's from that thingy game. What's it called? Can't think now. But the Star Wars game.
You've seen the alternate schemes where you get like big dags of like red. I'll show you some of the alternate schemes, and you'll go, "Yeah, I'm doing that."
All right, maybe I need to pick one of these up. So I don't know the universe terribly well at all. So
there are some really cool Star Wars kits floating about these days.
Oh, this one's the Bandai model apparently. So I guess that means this one might be a tiny bit bigger than
a bit cleaner as well. It's Bandai. Yeah. Amazing.
But I love the base on this. Like absolutely love it. Like everything about this is how I like to paint at the minute, or how I want to try and paint at the minute. Very, very limited.
Remember, I've got that at you can have that someone wants.
Oh my goodness, you have. Did you never do that for a commission?
That person
that when I met you,
that person still wants it painted. So if you want to do that as a commission,
bloody hell!
Have you seen Seth's one in the water? That's incredible.
So. Yeah,
I'll show you that.
But yeah, super cool. It's a couple more, I think. 1 or 2 more.
One more.
This I'm loving, and if I can remember right, I hope this is the one. I think this is one that a dad made for their kid, so they got their kid to like create what the scene would look like, and then the dad sort of actually did the painting and sculpting and all the rest of it, and was like, ta-da, there you go, kind of thing. And I was like, that's badass. Like that's a really cool motivator to do a piece. But also, kids are very honest, right? If it's cool, they'll tell you. If it's not cool, they'll tell you. So I feel like, if you get the thumbs up, then you've done a good job. So yeah, I enjoyed that one a lot. I'm seeing more and more people. We mentioned 2A earlier doing scenes, which may have a miniature in. They may have an animal like this, or they may have no miniature in whatsoever. It's just a scene.
But that's a little meta, right? It's like, right? Why not?
It's really cool. Like, and I don't really know where it comes from, or because they're executed to the same level as miniature painting scenic bases, right? They're not like like say a railway modeling and stuff like that, which is a different style, a different level of execution, right? They're really, really familiar and really nicely done. But there's just no miniatures in any of them. It's really cool. Like I've seen some of those time lapse ones, where someone will make a railway station or whatever, and they'll film it outside, so you've got the actual sky and all of that, and it looks incredible. It looks very realistic. It looks like a film set.
What's that account? I love Life. There's that account, and I showed it once, and it had the blue background, and they only do scenes. They just do a house on a hill.
Yeah,
and it's just the best.
It's really cool, and I love seeing that now coming into our little fantasy universes and people doing things with it. And I hope it's something that continues. I hope we see more.
Well, Joshua will help.
Obviously, you've got Joshua. Obviously Joshua Lai, great exponent of it. And 2A. So yeah, right.
Seen his Marines, by the way.
I have. Yes,
they're incredible.
Like that very much. So there we go. So if you want to get in touch with us, you've got some ideas for the show, you think there's an account we ought to take a look at, or an artist we should take a look at, it's up on all the usual ones. It's Cult of Paint on all of it. And we'll do our best to get back to you. We will be back in a couple of weeks with the next episode. So our plan is this year to still do fortnightly shows. Just life very much got in the way this month with it. So is there anything you guys wanted to add at all?
Do what you want.
Do what you want.
Know the rules, but break them.
Point the episode is to have fun, enjoy it, do what you want.
Nice. Well, as ever, if you're watching this back, thanks very much for the support. Hit the like button, comment, subscribe, all of that. It really does help us out. Thanks, chaps.
Ciao.
Thanks, chat. Take care. We'll see you next time.